Hello, everyone. I think we have a couple more joining us here, but today we don't really have a agenda planned or any new material, but just really going over any comments you had and any clarifications we can make today on the draft document.
So Charlie, just a quick question for me. I have some other comments, but I might just try to gather my thoughts a little. But the question was whether or not you have an executive summary that you're planning as well. I know I was asking for some general feedback from our president and CEO, and she said, you know, like most folks aren't going to have time, of course, to read the lengthy report immediately. So I don't know if that's in the works.
Yeah, we usually do that after we've received kind of our committee comments. Just if there is something significant, we don't have to change it twice, sort of thing. So, yep. And I have the document open. I can certainly pull it up and share it. I will say just a few minor comments have come in. Nothing. We haven't got consolidated comments from everyone yet. As far as to-do list for us is, yeah, we'll be putting in executive summary, a acknowledgements page with, you know, thanking the committee members that participated in the communities. As far as anything else with this, there might be some extra stuff that we need to throw in the appendix. I'm thinking, well, no, we do have all the open-ended comments here from the survey, and we do have the full survey responses in the appendix. There might be some minor formatting things just as we go through it one more time that we catch and change and reorganize some things just to make it look, the pages to flow nicely. Other than that, pretty much everything was fully drafted in this draft. So we expect the final document to be pretty close to what this looks like.
So maybe I can piggyback with a couple questions I had. So overall, just amazing work. It looks great. And as we discussed the last time, I really love that you gave specific examples for the strategies, because I think for strategies that we're not currently using in Story County, I think it's so helpful to have somewhere that we can look, some examples that can guide our work if we decide to go in a particular route. So I thought that was really great. A question that I had was about, and where I kind of was really super interested. You did a great job of noting needs of all kinds of residents, including those underserved, and kudos again to you for making sure that that was loud and clear in the report. I know it was in our discussions, but I appreciate that that came out in the report. I was curious, and I really found that graph on page 27 that shows the Des Moines, West Des Moines home ownership market attainability, and then compare, looks at what would it be for the annual income needed for a down payment, and then again for rental units, and compares it to those essential work annual salaries. Such a great and powerful image. I was wondering if that's a possible thing to create basically a parallel one for Story County, because I think that speaks volumes right there for those, again, for whom graphic depictions speak. I know that you talk about it more on the subsequent page, on page 28, but I think that, again, the graph, that visual is so helpful. So if there were a way to do a comparable one for this housing study, I mean, certainly I would love to see it. I think the data that you have on the next page, again, like I say, you discuss it, but it's a bit of a different twist on it where you talk about those gaps. So I guess that would be one comment. The other one I had was, and on the page that you're on right now, Charlie, on that page 28, I was kind of struck by that, at a quick glance, I think folks could say, like in that range of 25,000 to 49,999, could say, so there aren't really issues here because there's a surplus. But actually there's a surplus. I mean, that, if I'm understanding it correctly, that like dark gray or whatever color that is on the bottom, that 2,226 is houses for sale at that price point, right? And then is that correct? And then the rental units are that 1,447. Is that right?
You're muted, Charlie.
Yep. Yeah. So you point out something that we often hear from a lot of folks with this particular graphic, and we try to explain it as best we can. But so basically, yes, there is a, what this is saying is the dark blue gray is the number of available home ownership units in
Mhm.
this price, in a price range that would be affordable to this income bracket. The same with the light blue being rental units that would be affordable to folks in this income bracket. And then the 2129 is the actual number of people in that income bracket.
Okay, perfect. That's
Which
right,
is,
and that's the way I understood it. Yeah, and I guess I understand that the data technically says that there's a surplus. I
right,
think that right, like that's the puzzling piece, because I don't think that most folks in that price range are looking to buy a home.
right. And so
They're not in it.
explaining that is what that's telling us is, well, one, we know from the listening sessions and the survey responses that folks in this price range of homes, they can't find those homes aren't on the market. They're not there. We know that, even though this says surplus on this graphic. So what that means is there's a lot of other people competing in this price range where we see all these gaps in the other components. They are not units that they can buy in their price range, or that they want to buy in their price range. So they're moving down and maybe occupying these other price points.
Okay, yeah, and that's great. And I know that becomes evident, when you read further in, and as you say, exactly, I know that my household is one of the guilty ones of living in a house that's much cheaper, much more affordable than what we could actually technically live in, given our income. But we love the neighborhood, right? This old historic homes that are more affordable also. So yeah, I think anyway, that was just an interesting, I think that sometimes that, if it's interesting how people can take data in and, sometimes look at this quickly and come to a conclusion that there's not a need, where in fact there is a need. And I think that becomes clear if you read the whole report. Anyway, but I think that's what I've got for now.
Yeah, one thing that you just mentioned, and I think we mentioned, I'm not sure in this particular report, but often in our reports, is that's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with somebody wanting to save money by living in a cheaper home, and people are going to do that. And what this might be saying, if we have some more homes in these upper price range, then that would entice some, not all, of people in those price range maybe to look for something different, upgrade, expand, as their family grows, they get a bigger house or whatever that may be.
Yeah, or even move, I think it also helps make that argument about variety, so they can move laterally if they want to too, to something lower maintenance or whatever that might be, which might not be, a $400,000 unit, but it might be smaller or lower maintenance or those sorts of things too.
And I will say on this previous page, with the West Des Moines, the source that we took this from only had certain markets. So thus I used the closest, we used the closest that was to Ames, or Story County. Certainly, we could probably pull data, labor shed data or something for similar income brackets, or excuse me, jobs, and substitute in those numbers, because it would be pretty similar. We just substitute the incomes there.
Charlie, this is John Hall. If you guys are going through the effort of pulling that labor shed study and data, I think it might be also helpful, since Iowa State University is the largest employer in the market, if we could even drop one that had the ISU median wage for comparison to market attainability. I think that would be helpful, as I think a lot of the folks that could be residing throughout the county would be Iowa State employees, or potentially Iowa State employees. Additionally, I know on the annual income needed, particularly for the down payment component, since all of these areas within the study outside of Ames would be eligible for the USDA 0% down payment, I wonder if that would be a piece worth adding to that as well, as there is the eligibility for that.
Yeah, that's no problem. Just taking notes here so I can make sure I don't forget that.
And I guess just like to add in my thinking was, often when we see data for Des Moines or Polk County in Story County contexts, people often then are dismiss it as not quite relevant. And that's, I think it's much more aligned than people think. We often are an echo of that data, but just that's something that I've heard repeatedly when I share something that we only have data for Polk County then. So just the context, but again, this is really powerful regardless. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, fantastic. And I just kind of page through here and feel free to jump in if anyone else had any comments, but kind of want to maybe it might be a good idea to go through the strategies section. And I know we walked through it in our PowerPoint presentations and previous meetings, but just kind of to get everyone's bearings on what this is and how it works. Of course, I got to get there here, which page it was on. So the strategic market approach, just kind of like I said, for all the communities, and as you advertise this study, and we'll be giving a full presentation as well in the future. I'm kind of displaying the results, and it will be recorded for use as well. But it's really organized the same as our previous presentations, with the overarching are the goals, and then the tools underneath those goals. And it's really set up as a toolbox, understanding that each community is going to have certain things that apply to them more than other communities. But also there's going to be things that have to be done on a regional level, countywide level, that are not really appropriate to be done on a city by city level. So hopefully this section explains that when certain goals or tools are provided. And we kind of provide a little context for that as well, on when those sorts of goals would apply and what types of housing products and price points it's meant to target. Throughout here again, hopefully you saw these case studies that are examples that we've experienced firsthand in our work across the Midwest, that feel free to look into more, and we can provide contacts if you want to look more into those. So really, like I said, the tools, goals and tools throughout here are really meant as kind of a toolbox of different things for you. Some of them, like the managing the risks section, is really meant to be an overarching goal, coupled with all the other goals. So it's not mutually exclusive from the others, and really something that spans across everything. Some other things in here, I'm just kind of flipping through right now. I think that's pretty much all. There was some things to be updated in here yet. We did add a table with kind of similar to that surplus and gap graphic we showed just before, applying that those same income ranges also to the programs as well. So you can assign, look at the types of programs that are recommended for certain types of income ranges, and then look at the strategies and goals and potential financing tools for those as well. So like I said, some things to finalize up. I know I'm expecting some of you had reached out to me with your comments coming today, so we'll be making those edits this week, hopefully, and have that final draft ready for re-review or distribution, I should say, to your stakeholders and communities. Just looking at our future schedule, like I said, we haven't scheduled anything for our stakeholder presentation yet. I think we were looking at early January for that. And that would be something that would be before the county supervisor's approval. So any questions or other comments I missed?
Yeah, Charlie, Nick Sorensen here. I got a quick question. Just looking in the appendices for the surveys, and I see we had about 323 filled out the survey, and I know our population here in Story County is a lot. That doesn't represent the greatest percentage. Just for when I talk to these communities with this study, how did we ask for survey input from the public? I know I'm coming into this on the backside of things, so just for my knowledge, how I can explain where we got that information.
Yeah, we pushed it this summer, starting with this committee, sending out to their contacts and their lists. Leanne with the county sending out through a number of email lists, social media, individual community contacts as well. We did, after that first month or two, met with the steering committee and showed them kind of where we're at, where we're missing gaps, and we did another push to try to get more target populations. We did not, it was not quote unquote scientific survey in the sense of a random sample and that sort of thing. It was just really pushed as many people as possible to take it. So we had paper surveys as well, Spanish version that was available, and we had some of those returned as well that we inputted in.
Thank you.
Charlie, too, just for clarity, and correct me if I'm wrong here too, that because Ames wasn't one of the focus areas, it was a lot of the rest of the communities. We didn't, I mean, we're not saying we didn't put it out there for somebody from Ames to take, but we tried to probably focus a little bit more of the push on the other communities, you know, so if you kind of take Ames's population out of the total, the number starts to make a little more sense to me.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't do an explicit push to the city of Ames to push out through their channels. We focused it on other communities. Of course, we had a good percentage of Ames residents that took it, which we weren't discouraging. So.
Charlie, I don't know, this is just a comment and I may be incorrect, but on page 65, where you're talking about Gilbert, it notes something about it doesn't matter where, you know, if you want to access a school district, it doesn't matter where you live because of open enrollment. At least a couple years ago, they were not accepting open enrollments other than those that had been grandfathered in because the district was at capacity. So I don't know if something has changed in the last couple of years, but just an FYI in case I miss or we missed something in there.
Okay, yeah, I'll look at that.
I might, as I said, that was a couple of years ago. I was at the high school, and at that point, they weren't accepting it.
Sure.
So, but it may have changed.
Okay, sounds good. Leanne, I know you said you were going to be sending some comments. Any you wanted to bring up with the group while we're all together? Oh, I'm not sure if Leanne's on actually.
No, Leanne's on.
Oh, there she is.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Well, mine are a little bit editorial just from being a planner. So I'm not going to bore the group with that. I do have some questions on some of the information, and I'm gonna mute myself while I get to that page so you guys don't have to hear me ruffle through all my pages, and then I'll come back in a second. So if someone else wants to go on finding particular pages, go for it.
Okay, sounds good.
This is John Hall. I've got a question. Page 49, There's a couple of maps on of Nevada. The map on the right, well, actually both maps are cutting off a new housing subdivision that's currently being worked on the south side of town and has been for a number of years. I was wondering if we could get the map adjusted so that it appropriately shows that. It's off of 11th Street. There's a new housing subdivision that is on 40 acres. Now it hasn't been, yeah, right in that area. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So there's a new housing subdivision 40 acres south of there that's been being worked on for a few years. It'd just be good to have a map that better reflects that.
Yep.
Additionally, the large swath of very poor, while that is one 93-acre parcel, there is a single farmstead on that.
Yeah.
And I think folks from Nevada would look at that and go, well, that doesn't, because that's our future housing stock growth. It'd be better just to have it grade. And then I wanted to circle back on Nick's comments about the survey questions. So it looks like there's 197 surveys that were taken from folks in Story County outside of Ames. Is that enough to feel confident in the responses that are put in there in order to feel like we can actually make the case on the qualitative side? It seems low. It seems low, and I understand that there was a marketing effort on it, but it just seems low to me.
Yeah, I mean, we're still, I have to run the sample size numbers on that. I know with 321, even with the Ames included in the population, it was still roughly at a 95% confidence interval with, like you said, wasn't a scientific administered survey, but yeah, I think, like you said, the multiple pushes and trying to get the word out. I don't know why we weren't getting larger number of responses. And I don't know, Amy, I feel pretty good with that response given the rural nature of some of the other communities. But how does that compare with some of our other surveys we've done?
Yeah, I mean, if you took Ames out of the total population, I would be happy with 300 and some. In fact, I'm working on I'm working with a smaller county in Missouri right now, and I've told them that kind of needs to be their goal, is the 300 and some surveys. I think that's a good point about the fact that, a good number of those do come from Ames. I mean, we can always easily add a note in there, regarding the fact, to mostly noting the fact that, this is one more tool that we kind of balance out with the listening sessions, and we're looking for kind of sometimes some bigger anomalies that we maybe don't hear in the listening sessions, or things that we, kind of comparing those two pieces out. So, the survey isn't meant to be kind of the standalone piece, and maybe we need to emphasize that a little bit more, that it's blended in with the listening sessions that we did, where we got to capture a good number of individuals through that process too. So we can just kind of maybe put a note in there a little bit more about that.
Yes, Amy, that sounds like it would be a good additional note to add.
I guess my fear on this is that somebody in Nevada on the NEDC looks at this and sees 23 respondents from Nevada and has a hard time believing the results that come out and say, hey, here's the recommendations on Nevada, because and I understand that there's a broader context within it all. I don't know, that gives a bit of concern. I mean, it's a community of 7,000 people. 23 survey results doesn't seem like especially because it wasn't conducted scientifically, I would think raises concerns. Sitting here, it raises concerns for me about certainly some of the results that came out of this. And I understand you have to take it in a countywide context, but yeah, I guess those are just the questions I've got related to the survey component.
I think I'm trying to flip to the section specifically on Nevada. Can you remind me what page that's on, Charlie?
Oh,
I have my own.
60 maybe. You mean the market data?
No. Would be probably the opportunities. I'm looking for it.
46 is where Nevada starts.
46, yeah.
Yeah, and that section is mostly focused around the market analysis, and then probably incorporating a lot of the listening sessions into that. You know, the survey piece and that's and part of the reason why, you know, in some we're doing a housing study for a much larger county right now, and we are polling, you know, when we had 500 responses from one community, we would pull a little bit of that and then actually include it in this section too. And that's part of the reason why we don't do that here, is because the numbers aren't quite as big. The responses aren't as big, so that really the survey is getting kind of rolled in a little bit more into the broader community recommendations, and that the broader county recommendations and the individual communities are building off of the market analysis and what we learn from individuals in the listening sessions, which I think, Charlie, we circled back and tried to even include a couple of additional listening sessions or some one-on-ones with individuals in Nevada,
Yeah.
just to make sure we had some better coverage there too.
Yeah, we did 2 rounds of listening sessions. And yeah, from Nevada, just off the top of my head, thinking we talked with the mayor. We talked with one of the gentlemen that did a recent subdivision, kind of on the side. He's not a developer. I'm trying to remember, but in Nevada.
Yeah, Charlie Alcoker.
Yeah. So we talked with at least 2. I know more individually in the Nevada market.
So to what you had just said, Amy, regarding there being additional context that would be within that section if the survey was a more robust response, does that warrant this group looking at reopening the survey and adding more survey responses? I mean, it sounds like there's opportunity for a more robust report that we're missing out on because of low survey count.
Well, I think what Amy was referring to was a county we're working in. Johnson County, Kansas has a population of 500,000. Olathe, Overland Park, and we get several hundred survey responses from each of those communities alone, which we provide them. We're able to filter the survey out specifically for those cities, and because those cities are so drastically different, provide those survey results within their section of the report.
Yeah, I think it's usually pretty unusual for us with smaller communities to necessarily do that. I don't think, Charlie, that with any of the, again, there's much smaller counties these are going to be much smaller counties compared to Story, but a little bit more comparable if you take Ames out. But you've got the Mitchell counties and the Hamilton and Calhoun. I don't think in any of those we were seeing the numbers where we were necessarily pulling out and and individual communities either. But I mean, that's, you know, it's a good question, John.
Yeah, I mean, reopening the survey is not
It's not a problem.
Is not really a problem. Yeah, it's just in fact, I'm not sure we ever closed it. I have to take a look. It's actually closed on SurveyMonkey, and then it's just a matter of updating the graphics and if there are drastic swings in responses, which I don't think there would be, then maybe we would update some of the opportunities and issues specific to the county, or in maybe the recommendations, but I highly doubt there would be that significant of swings to change any of the recommendations. But yeah, reopening up is really doesn't create an issue. It's just, like I said, a click of the mouse and resending the link out. And I kind of leave that to the committee to decide if that's something they want to do.
What is your timeline to present this final report again?
We have not set a date yet for the community presentation, but I think we were anticipating in January to make that community presentation.
Yeah, I just wonder, given the holidays coming up, whether or not, you know, a push at this time would actually result in very many additional surveys. Perhaps it would, again, if it's a, you know, focused, but
I would say I mean, in a way, you are correct. I mean, if we're going to do it, we got to do it like in the next week to week and a half, because then after that, it gets a lot harder. You're right.
Well, additionally, I know that we had a vacancy in our office where in the seat that the role that Nick now sits in, which is our county outreach component, about the time the survey was live. So I think that we likely dropped the ball at our organization pretty dramatically with not pushing that survey out as robustly as we probably should. And I don't want to put Nick on the spot, but certainly I would think that we might be able to assist in pushing it out a little further and wider. Nick, would you concur or disagree?
I think you're fibbing a little bit about not wanting to put me right on the spot. That's what I think. No, absolutely. I think we can push it a bit more. I mean, we have zeros in some of the communities, and all it's going to take is me, even if it's the council members filling out the surveys, they've got a pulse, you know, and they can represent it very well. I think in this next week, we'd be able to get at least better responses from, you know, your Maxwells, your Cambridge, Colo, Collins, those communities. At least that way, when this does get unveiled, the Board of Supervisors can see that we've got numbers from all the communities, even though not all the data is based off survey. In fact, probably a very small portion is based off of that, but it does show that public input was put there.
And to be honest, usually what I see, in fact, I just had this last week with Benton County, Missouri, and I said, I think you need to do a push. I was looking at their numbers and I said, I bet if you did a push to the superintendents and asked them to send it out to all their staff, we could hit your target. And they did that. And like literally the next day we had it, because most people, when they get it, are going to do it right away, or they see it on a Facebook feed. They're going to see it right. They're going to usually do it right away. So we usually see that spike right away. So if we did something like we said, we're opening it, last chance, will be open till like the 21st, we'd probably see a big spike, I would guess, in a day or two up for some of those, and then maybe sending another reminder like on Friday, don't forget over the weekend, you know, kind of do this, and we'd probably see a little bit of a jump.
Yeah, and I just put the link in the chat box. I can send out afterwards too, but we never officially closed it. The link's been live the whole time, but you can see where we started that push the week of August 3rd. We got the biggest jump, and then kind of little jumps here and there throughout the fall. Looks like our last response was, I don't know, in October sometime. But so yeah, so that link is in the chat. survey was never closed. Folks that have taken it before, they should not be able, it won't let them take it again. So we should be good there if it's on their same computer. So we should be good from that front.
But yeah, Nick, I appreciate the comment of like, it'd be nice to at least see all of our council members.
Yeah, I suspect that if they know about it, they'll fill it out. So we'll get it put back out there.
Sounds good.
I had a survey related question too.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, you know, the note in about the survey that it was pretty much on par with what you expected in terms of like demographics, but that you thought it might be a little high in terms of the median income who was taking the survey.
Mm-hmm.
Could we talk more about that if we're reopening the survey?
Yeah, so we basically did a pulse check throughout the survey of looking at our responses versus what the census would tell us is the demographics of the population. And this is not uncommon, but we typically see our survey responses overrepresent higher income households. And we did do a push to try to balance that out more, and it did a little bit, but we're still slightly, the responses we receive are slightly above what the census would indicate for household income ranges countywide, even excluding Ames from that. So we did a little bit, like I said, did a little bit of targeted pushing to try to get some of the lower income ranges, but again, I think in almost every survey we do, we're always a little high on median income compared to what the census would say for the county. So that's just something we kind of take into consideration when we're looking at the results, just understanding the people that are answering the survey and how they would respond.
I would, you know, if any of you, since we're kind of reopening it and the links here, one outlet might be if we have some major employers that are have a lot of service workers, have a lot of hourly workers, and if we can reach out to them and say, hey, could you send this out to your employees or something like that? That might be a good way to get some additional people completing it. Just a thought too, if you want to try and up that number a little bit.
Thanks. I appreciate the insight there. I just didn't know if that was something we should be addressing too, if we're doing the reopening or yeah. But of course, it makes sense that, you know, the responses are a little low in those categories in terms of who has access to internet and the time to fill out a survey and that kind of thing.
Great. Leanne, did you get to your pages or anything you wanted to talk about?
I did. And just for the benefit of everyone on the line, I'm gonna just scan into my document and send it to Charlie and Amy tomorrow when I'm back in the office, but I'll summarize everything and send it to the committee members as well, as far as the comments that I've received. I think it might be important to go back and look at the RFP we released and make sure that we've incorporated at the beginning all the definitions from that too, in the definition section. That's one exercise I've not yet done, but that's early on in the document. Just a comment on the general, and it might just be the printer I used, but some of the gradations in the color are a little bit difficult to determine the differences. And again, I printed it off in color, But I'm wondering, even in black and white, for those that don't have color and do want a paper copy, there might be, I've highlighted some figures where it might be important to add the numbers in addition.
Sure.
Yep. And again, I don't know if it's just the copier I used or what. I won't get into my specific questions other than like, for instance, page 15, some of the colors, if you look at Ziering, Collins, and Colo, I can't even see it without my glasses. They
Yeah,
get
they're
pretty
similar.
hard to decipher.
Sure. Yep.
I'm not going to go into all my individual comments.
Oh, no, that's fine.
because-
Just didn't know if there was any that would be beneficial for the entire committee to hear. If not, no problem. We'll just address them when you send them in.
I did write down page 21 for something. What was? Oh, page 21 was just the different color scheme. And
Sure.
that one was really tough to see. Just a lot, mine is editorial, and then questioning some of the, just some of the conclusions, not questioning the conclusions, but just adding some language into it.
Sure. Okay. That sounds good.
I guess I do have a question for those on the Zoom then. If I put together a piece that announces we're re-releasing the survey or reopening it up, can I have everyone help me push that out on your social media pages and through your networks as well? Thank you for the thumbs up.
We would do that in Huxley, Leanne.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Leanne, and in that piece, I think it would be good to clarify that this is the same survey. So people that may have taken it don't think it's the same survey and get confused if it doesn't let them take it. So
That's a good point. Charlie and Amy, if you guys have a piece that you could send me just to start building on, that'd be great too.
sure. Yeah, I'll put something together quick.
And I know when we released it last time, I did send something out to superintendents, but I'll send it to them again. So Nick and John, I'll take care of that piece. And we also included it in the countywide newsletter that went out in September. There was a piece, a little article in our story. We won't be able to do that again because we won't be going to publisher on that until the end of January. But we definitely will do social media, and I can do another news release.
Yeah, and Leanne, the superintendent from the example there was mostly just because they're the biggest employer.
Right.
The school districts
Yeah.
are in that county. Yeah.
And
So it's
I think it's great pushing out to them again and having them send it on to households if they deem appropriate.
Yeah, and I think just for the benefit of having the document in a final draft state in January, we should probably put a deadline on the survey response when we advertise it as well. I don't know what's appropriate here, but we could say the end of December. We could say a week. We could go longer, but I think putting a finite date on to have your responses in is probably beneficial. It doesn't really matter to us. I think it won't take long to make those updates. But I would think something like the end of December is probably sufficient.
I think end of December would be good.
When this is re-released, is there any way to tell that you're not getting responses back from the same people who were already included either in the survey or listening sessions?
So anyone that took the survey before, SurveyMonkey should not allow them to take it again if it's on the same computer that they took it on. That being said, it'll be pretty easy to see the responses come in December, since we can filter out responses between a certain date, and we could do a quick check just to make sure that IP addresses, or if people entered their emails, that they're not duplicate. But SurveyMonkey should be capturing that already, so someone shouldn't have access to it if they've already taken it.
So that might be a common question you actually get, is if somebody says, I can't, it's not, the link's not working. You might want to ask them, did you take this last fall? Just to confirm with them, but then let us know. If they say, no, I didn't, then let us.
Just double checking the settings right now, but okay. Well, I'll put together some text, Leanne, for that promo snip. And we'll expect more comments coming in this week, and we'll just make those updates right now. Otherwise, Leanne, we can work on organizing the community presentation in January and determine a date that works best for that. Obviously, we'll have to work with if that. I imagine that is going to have to be virtual, but we can talk about that. So.
No, the public meeting room is open for members of the public to attend meetings, but there is space limited to follow the social distancing requirements. And our meetings are still being conducted virtually.
Sure. Yeah. So we'll probably do like a webinar, which we've done multiple times. We could even, that actually lets us record it too and post it as well. So that's actually a benefit of doing it virtual as well.
Well, something else we could think about doing too, if we're doing it via webinar thing, and this is just, we don't have to figure out the details of this today, but we could also do some almost like target marketing to it. So, we could say, please join us at this time, and we could, or one of these times, and we could have, 2 or 3 time slots or something like that too, because that's something we would do, have traditionally done if we're doing kind of a road show. I've done it before where I come in and I do a noon, and I do, a late afternoon and an evening or something like that, or, do a noon presentation and then kind of more towards the end of day in 2 different locations. So we could figure out and do something like that too, if that helps get more people. But like Charlie said, we can also record it. But I know people like to have sometimes a little bit more of a live experience where they could ask questions and stuff too.
I think that's a good idea. If you guys can set up on your end. We have one license of Zoom that we can set up a webinar, and I really probably couldn't lock it down.
Yeah, and we would, with being able to comment and stuff, we don't, it's a little, yeah, we don't want the kind of complete lockdown, but yeah.
Yep, that's no problem. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns for the good of the committee?
I just had a question on the time frame for this study and implementing the strategies. I really appreciated the strategies. They were really helpful, but I just didn't know if I said there was a 10-year demand for certain housing types, if these were things to be implemented in the 10-year time frame, if the thought was this was a 10-year long study, or if there was a prioritization scheme for some of these strategies within those housing costs that we could, indicate.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. It is, the demand schedule is, 10-year projection forecasted model. for the strategies, as far as a prioritization, it really is going to depend on the community and the resources, kind of as opportunities are, the low hanging fruit opportunities are there. I think the sharing risk is probably is the highest priority goal of all of them, hence why it's a overarching goal. As far as time frame, it's hard. Some of these things kind of depend on opportunities as they rise, and different partnerships that can be formed, and you never quite know how long they can be put together. But I would say, this is all the recommendations are within a 10-year period for sure. Hence the forecast of housing demand. And we could provide a sample of how that looks in a time frame, but I would say it's really up to the individual communities and the county partnerships that are being formed afterwards on what they want to prioritize first based on funding and the ability to get the partnerships in place. Since the goals are kind of all relatively different. Not any one goal depends on the other, except for that sharing risk one is the one that kind of filters into everything.
Thanks, that's helpful.
And we can add a clarification for that in the chapter 5 as well on how that would work. Okay. Anyone else? We certainly don't have to go our whole time if we don't need it, but want to make sure we get all the questions answered. If not, like I said, we've got some tasks that we'll be sending out to Leanne and the group to filter through with the survey, and continue making edits. Feel free if you still have edits you're working on, that's fine. We have a little bit of time, and you can get them to us later this week too. That's no problem. So. Otherwise, I guess we can jump off early if there's nothing else. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. It's exciting to see that people have reviewed the draft. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.